For the last century, humanity has become very good at punching holes in the earth. We drill for oil, we drill for water, we drill for samples of the deep past. A 6-mile deep well? In the grand scheme of modern engineering, that sounds ordinary. We've drilled thousands of them. But this time, the drill wasn't meant for the ocean floor or a Texas oil field. In the early 2010s, a group of scientists proposed sending a drill bit into the heart of the single most dangerous geological feature on the North American continent. They wanted to drill inside the Yellowstone supervolcano. Yes, that very place. The dormant titan capable of plunging Earth into a volcanic winter, wiping out the grain belts of the Midwest and rewriting the history of civilization. The proposal was audacious. Puncture the skin of the beast to save us from it. Some called it the only way to prevent the apocalypse. Others called it the perfect recipe for starting one. So, what exactly was the plan? And why would anyone try to sneak into the heart of a burning mountain? Yellowstone is a deception. To the millions of tourists who visit every year, it is a wonderland of rainbow-colored pools and rhythmic geysers. They stroll along the boardwalks, snapping photos, completely unaware that they are standing on the lid of a pressure cooker the size of a city. Beneath the park lies a vascular system of molten rock. Magma moves here like blood through veins, heating the groundwater until the earth itself seems to breathe. This isn't a metaphor. The ground at Yellowstone literally rises and falls as the magma chamber inflates. Scientists watch these movements with obsessive precision. GPS stations record every millimeter of uplift. Satellites scan the park around the clock. Chemical sensors sniff the air for helium and sulfur. Why the paranoia? Because this monster has a track record. Yellowstone has erupted 3 times in history. Each time, it altered the planet's climate. The last event, 640,000 years ago, spewed enough material to bury the continent. If it happened today, the zone of death would stretch for thousands of miles. The sun would vanish behind a shroud of ash. Temperatures would plummet. Agriculture would collapse. It would be a hard reset for humanity. Now, the good news, the odds of this happening in our lifetime are vanishingly small, roughly 1 in 730,000. Statistically, you are far more likely to be struck by an asteroid than to see Yellowstone blow. So we should just leave it alone, right? That logic works perfectly as long as nobody messes with it. But humans wouldn't be humans if we didn't look at a planet-killing force of nature and think, I bet I can engineer that. A few years ago, NASA, the agency usually focused on the stars, turned its eyes downward. They proposed a concept that borders on science fiction, a plan to harvest energy from the supervolcano while simultaneously disarming it. The logic was simple: thermodynamics. Beneath Yellowstone lies infernal heat. The magma chamber is essentially a giant battery that never runs out. But you can't just drill straight down into the lava. That would be suicide. The rock cap over the magma chamber is brittle. If you pierce it directly, you risk decompression. Imagine popping a shaken soda bottle, but the bottle is the size of Rhode Island and the soda is molten rock. A sudden drop in pressure could cause gases to expand instantly, triggering the very eruption you're trying to prevent. So, NASA devised a flank attack. The plan called for drilling to begin outside the national park boundaries. They would bore a well 6 miles deep, angling it sharply to run alongside the magma chamber, never piercing it, but getting close enough to feel the burn. This is where the physics gets intense. They would pump cold water down into this hellscape. At that depth and temperature, water stops acting like water. It hits roughly 750 degrees Fahrenheit and enters a supercritical state. It's no longer liquid, no longer steam, but a high-energy ghost in between. This fluid would rush back to the surface, spinning turbines to generate electricity. The estimates were staggering. We're talking about 6 gigawatts of thermal energy. Even after conversion losses, that's enough electricity to power a medium-sized country. Green energy that flows day and night, forever. But electricity was just the bait. The real goal was cooling. NASA believed that if we constantly extracted this heat, we could cool the volcano faster than the Earth's core could reheat it. Over thousands of years, the supervolcano would settle into a slumber from which it might never wake. They put a price tag on saving the world, $3.5 billion. It sounds perfect, a source of infinite energy and a safety lock for the apocalypse. But then, the geologists raise their hands. On paper, it works. In reality, Yellowstone fights back. We know this because we've tried before. In 1929 and again in the 60s, scientists drilled modest research wells, barely 1,000 feet deep. They weren't anywhere near the magma. Yet, as soon as they tapped the hydrothermal veins, the ground convulsed. Wells turned into geysers, shooting rocks and boiling water into the sky. Yellowstone isn't a tank of liquid, it's a living, pressurized sponge. Everything is connected. If you drill a 6-mile hole, you alter the pressure balance. A tiny shift in stress could open new fractures. Gases like hydrogen sulfide or carbon dioxide could find new escape routes, bursting to the surface, not as an eruption, but as a silent, suffocating blanket. And then there is the problem of time. NASA's plan requires cooling the volcano by roughly 35%. To do that safely would take thousands of years of continuous operation. Thousands. Think about that. No human civilization has ever lasted that long. Nations rise and fall. Budgets are cut. If the pumps stop or the casing cracks after 500 years, what happens? We are talking about a project that requires an eternity of vigilance. There is also a moral cost. Yellowstone is not a machine, it is a sanctuary. It is the home of the grizzly, the wolverine, and the wolf. It is the last remnant of wild America. The heat from underground is what keeps the rivers flowing in winter. It's what drives the migration of the bison. If we start sucking the heat out of the ground, we don't just cool a volcano, we change the ecosystem. We jeopardize the thermophiles, microbes that live in the boiling pools. These tiny organisms gave us the enzyme used in PCR technology, the very basis of modern DNA science. If we cool the park, we wipe out a biological library we haven't even finished reading. Given the risks, the legal bans, and the sheer impossibility of the timeline, the NASA plan was shelved. But the idea of drilling into a supervolcano didn't die. In fact, in Europe, they actually tried it. Welcome to the Campi Flegrei, the Phlegraean Fields, a supervolcano hidden beneath the suburbs of Naples, Italy.
Unlike Yellowstone, this volcano is surrounded by millions of people. When an international team announced plans to drill a pilot hole in 2010, the public panic was immediate. They feared the scientists would trigger the big one. The project was halted, delayed, and eventually scaled back. They drilled only 1,600 feet deep, a mere pinprick, but enough to install sensors. It proved that public fear is often a bigger barrier than rock. But there is one place on Earth where fear doesn't apply: Iceland. Here, geology happens in real time. The Earth splits open, and new land is born. And here, they have done what NASA only dreamed of. In 2009, at the Krafla power station, Icelandic engineers were drilling a standard geothermal well. They expected to hit hot rock at 3 miles deep. Instead, at just 1.2 miles, the drill jammed. They pulled it up and found the drill bit had been obliterated by molten glass. They had accidentally drilled directly into a magma chamber. Panic? Evacuation? No. They poured cold water down the hole to freeze the magma around the pipe, creating a glass lining. Then, they opened the valve. The well produced superheated steam at 840 degrees Fahrenheit, generating 36 megawatts of power from a single hole. It was the most powerful geothermal well in history. They proved that you can touch the dragon without getting burned. Now, Iceland is launching the Krafla Magma Testbed. They are going back, this time on purpose. They intend to build the world's first magma observatory, a research facility drilled directly into the molten heart of the planet. They are testing alloys, sensors, and techniques that don't even exist yet. So could we drill Yellowstone? Technically, perhaps. Iceland shows us that the engineering is within reach. We have the materials. We have the thirst for clean energy. We certainly have the fear of extinction to motivate us. But Yellowstone poses a different question. Should we? There is a fine line between stewardship and hubris. To drill into Yellowstone is to assume we can control a system we barely understand. It is to place a human hand on the thermostat of the continent. For now, the NASA plan remains a file on a server, a what-if scenario gathering digital dust. The supervolcano sleeps beneath the park, its breathing monitored by silent sensors and distant satellites. We remain watchers, waiting for a disaster that may not come for 10,000 years. But as our energy needs grow and the climate crisis deepens, the temptation to stick a straw into the ultimate power source will only grow stronger. The beast is sleeping, and for now, we've decided not to poke it. But the drill bits are waiting.